Good morning, class. It's time for another section of Chapter 10. And today we're going to be talking about some tools that are very popular. We're going to talk about enterprise management applications. What these tools do, I see a mistake. I'm going to fix it while you watch. How's that? Okay, what these tools do, they actually monitor any applications that are run on your systems on the enterprise. So any computer that is on your enterprise, on your whole network, any application it runs, these tools actually can monitor that. So if you run Outlook, it keeps a log at this machine at this time of day with this user logged in and turned on this application. So they're very handy, and as you can probably figure out, they can be used for evidence gathering, right? So they can give you information about the software that was run on a system, including malware. Because malware and attackers run software, these tools can help you investigate activities of a hacker. And this part of the chapter will discuss methods that you can use to investigate using these tools without actually using the console, because a lot of times the console is run by someone else, not incident response team. So you may not have access to the console. So we're just going to discuss some of the logs and things that you can use, and which are probably going to be more useful to you anyway. So one of the most common tools is called Landesk Software Management Suite. It's a third-party application. In other words, you have to buy it separate from Microsoft or any operating system. And you install it at the enterprise level, and then it keeps up with things like the number of software licenses that you have. Because after all, if you only paid for 20 licenses of, let's say, Microsoft Office, but there's 50 people using it, that's a problem. So you need to keep up with that, and these tools help you do that. Data on the application used is kept, even if the application is deleted, so that makes it very useful for forensics. So, because a lot of times, hackers will hack in, install something, do something, and then delete that program. But this keeps this tool actually keeps a log of that. So it keeps the evidence in the monitor logs, and all you have to do is go look it up. Some of the things you can do with these logs, you can look for use frequency analysis on total runs. So hackers often run their tools only once and delete them. So if you look for use frequency analysis, in other words, you look for applications that were only run once or twice or maybe 3 times, in other words, they're not run very often, you look for those and you might find malware that's been used on your system. Another thing you can use is identify suspicious path of executions. A lot of times attackers will use a certain path to attack. And for example, they might use the recycle bin route, where they'll attack from that recycle bin and do things on your main part of your system. And so if you see some kind of path of execution coming from a weird location, that's probably an attacker on your system. And then you can use timeline analysis to identify data compromise. For example, you see a lot of clustering around execution of things that a normal user doesn't normally know to run. For example, something we use like net.exe, net1.exe, cmd.exe. You and I, as technical people, we probably use CMD fairly often, but a normal user doesn't even know that exists. So if you see these things being used often, you might look at the timeline and correlate it with some other issues you've seen. So you can see how that log could be very useful to you. There's a couple other items. Identify suspicious usernames. So you might see some usernames on a system that don't quite match what goes on with that system. So you could use the current user's value to identify user account that last ran on the system. And maybe it's in, Dr. So-and-so's office, but it's got this weird person logging in after hours. That would be a big telltale sign something's going on. And you could identify executables that no longer exist on the system. And we kind of mentioned that because a lot of times those attackers will delete something. And if you see that something's been installed, run once or twice, and then delete it, that's a big red flag. You need to investigate that. Another tool is called Semantic Altiris Client Management Suite. It's similar to the Landesk, only it keeps like a parsed type log. So it does keep a log, but the log has more detail on the executables than the Landesk SLM does. It keeps things like the application's version, the manufacturer, the product name, the date executed, the domain, and a whole lot of others. If you want to see all the items, look at page 229 in your textbook. It also, you can use it to identify executables that do not have a version, because people who write malware don't normally take the time to have versioning on the malware. They often they remove any identifiable information about the software. So you want to use that log, and if there's software that's been used that doesn't have any kind of identifying information, such as versioning, then that's a red flag. You want to check that out and see what it was. And also, it can identify suspicious executables by file size. Malware is often a very small program. So if you see very small programs being run on your system, most applications that users use are large programs. So that's a red flag. That's something that you need to check out. All right, so that's two enterprise level tools that you can use. These enterprise level tools help people manage licensing, but they're also very good for you to use to investigate incidents. So that's the end of part 2 in chapter 10. And I look forward to your next video. Just keep working hard. We're almost through this semester.